So what are we talking about today?
Messaging.
Oh, right. Messaging.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm kidding.
No,
I
I
knew,
know.
you're in New Jersey, yeah?
I'm in Jersey. Yeah, yeah. I'm living at my best friend from high school and his girlfriend's house. They have like an extra room. So I've been here this winter. I left New York so that I could travel this winter time. And I went
Right.
to California for a month and stuff, and then after, like, all of this stuff happening, I'm definitely like landing here indefinitely. So
That's awesome, though.
yeah, no, it's good. I mean, they've got two dogs too, and it's like, it's just the three of us here, and we're all pretty much quarantined. So at least I have some company, and I'm around. You know,
That's better than most.
yeah, for sure. Um, cool. Yeah. Well, we can go ahead and get started. I know Eric will join us in a little bit, but I gave everybody a brief about like who you are in relation to me and our relationship together. But I also don't want to speak for you. I'm first and foremost, I'm really stoked that you're here to chat with us today. It's you're somebody who I personally look up to, and I thought, I was speaking in my mentorship class last week and about messaging, and I'm like, man, who's like a person that I think really puts a great message forward. So like, that's why I asked you to come today, and thanks for being here. And if you could just maybe just give a brief, like, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. Well, one, thank you for that. If sometimes sorry, there was music playing on that computer. Shit. It won't stop now. Sorry, guys. Where is that coming from? Can you hear that?
Yeah, yeah. It's probably like a YouTube. Maybe you have like YouTube tab open or something.
No, I closed everything. Fucking hell, man. I'm sorry, guys.
It's all good, man. We got time.
I'll just mute it. All right. Well, my name is Ryan Babenzien. I'm the founder of Greats. What do you want me to tell you about me, or do you want
Yeah,
me to
maybe
about
like,
me?
I know that's like the hardest question when people ask me, they're like, hey, so, oh, you're a photographer, what do you shoot? I'm just like, everything, so
Yeah.
I'm sort of asking a broad question on purpose to see, like, I
Sure.
guess where you go with it, so like, what do you consider yourself? And because I could label you a couple things, but I really don't even want to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. That's helpful context. So technically, I'm the CEO of Greats, which for years I've said is the chaos efficiency officer, because as the first digital native footwear brand, it was a startup. I don't consider ourselves a startup anymore. We're going to be 7, so I don't think we're a startup. But in the beginning, it's just like all chaos, and you're just managing chaos. And there's something to be said for successful entrepreneurs, of which I would consider myself one of. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not sure I'm successful, but I'm an entrepreneur. But there is something to say that successful ones manage really challenging situations well. And some of that is sort of technical, some of that is emotional, and some of that is strategic. And when you combine all those things together, you sort of have the formula for being a better than average startup CEO.
Yeah. So then, as a CEO, are you managing ideas then? Is that like do you kind of push an idea in the right way? Like if it's of a brand or a company, it sounds kind of like you're describing, like, you're managing the chaos, but really you're deciding like what has priority and what maybe has to happen next, and like what's the direction. So to me, it sounds like you're corralling ideas and wrangling them.
Yeah, I think, look, I think at different levels of businesses, CEOs do different things. For me personally, um, at our stage, I am wrangling ideas as well as making sure the business strategy is the right one, and everybody's sort of rowing the boat in the same direction. But I'm also probably closer to product and marketing than many CEOs, even in the stage of business that we're in. So, other CEOs I know in the same stage, they don't get involved with product at all, like at all. They just have a team and they present it and they go, cool. Where I'm sort of a little more involved in that. And then all the way through the marketing. Like we have a great marketing team, but I contribute to that more than a lot of other CEOs.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen that with our own work together, I'll have an idea on a project that me and you have worked on, and you'll throw in your ideas, or you'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Like what I've really appreciated about working with you is that you have like your hands in the idea pot, and you're if even if you're just only monitoring it, you also have your own to contribute. And also I've seen, directly that it's cool. You'll let people run with something. So I think in that same sense, like you got to have some trust in that, your team's ideas are sort of built, I guess, in line with the direction that you feel like the brand needs to be.
Yeah, I think this is the toughest part for anybody or any CEO is you must hire great talent and then you must learn to trust them. But that's hard. It's easier to say that than do it. When you really work with somebody well, that it's sort of a 100% trust, like any relationship, where there's been a direction that's been established, and then you trust that individual to take that direction and execute. Yeah, like in the like case with you, like there was not a lot of my input needed. Like we just talked about an idea and then it sort of happened.
Right.
Where other things is like beating a tin to like shape it, and like that's sort of not what you want, right? I don't think that's good for either party, whether the creative side of it or the business side of it. If they have to sort of constantly bash to get the result, something's wrong with that relationship.
Yeah, fully. Yeah, and I think that kind of like is a nice segue into maybe our topic here of like messaging, because having trust in your team or others as building a message going forward is one thing, but the fact that you're so close to so many parts of, let's say, Greats, for example, is the brand's message your own idea, or like how much collaboration goes into that message there? Like, because from afar I see Greats and I'm like, it always seems like you guys are putting out the right thing, whether that's like, let's say pandemic or not, like what I see from Greats is always like, I'm always like, wow, that's like, it feels appropriate. So how much of that message comes from you as a CEO, and how much of it maybe comes from your team as a collaborative effort?
So, and this is sort of where brand, like I'll just pull out brand from the communication for a second. The brand inception and its belief system and what the DNA is of what Greats is meant to be, is now, will be, has been established. And that's what great brands do. They sort of like create this ethos from the beginning and then never change it. The words around it, the colors around it, the imagery around it can change, but the brand DNA is sort of printed from the day you start. The rest from there, if you do that well, then like this should live well beyond me, right? Like what the brand is should be, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, like the brand would still exist, and that messaging that you see and appreciate would also exist as long as nobody decides to change it. Like they would have to change the entire brand ethos to sort of change messaging. And an example of like what I'm talking about is very current. So we have this thing called, we were building a campaign around this idea that the greatest people consider the collective. That was a concept that literally that statement, the greatest people consider the collective, became like a tagline. We're like, we should just use that. That's just sort of like really important, because this is not about Greats or you or me. This is about like the world and how Greats thinks about responsibility and how we're producing product and have been working with better supply chains from the beginning. Like this has all been happening. So now we're going to go out and put a logo to it, if you will. I didn't come up with that statement. I didn't create that. I didn't create that tagline. Somebody else did. But it was created based on the communication of what Greats is and wants to be known as. And then a copywriter came up with those words. And now we're using it as sort of a consumer facing message that will be hopefully by the end of the year. Like if you saw Consider the Collective, because that's like the edited version of The Greatest People Consider the Collective, you'll immediately think of Greats. And that's what good communication does, right? Like it's sort of, it's got to be authentic and it's got to be, it can't be fabricated. Like there's so many taglines in the world. Like I put a LinkedIn post up last week about that statement about Consider the Collective. And I'm like, to paraphrase what I wrote, I'm like, people are going to think of this as a tagline and will likely come to know Greats from this statement. But it's really a thread of our DNA that we've been doing from the beginning. And that's the more important part. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it makes me think like that, like, you know, let's say you're starting something, whether it's a business or even a piece of art, or if you start somewhere with a core belief, you can allow it to grow. You can still keep making it. And then it's almost like you're drawing inspiration, or you're curating things that maybe are like current times, or maybe that apply to really the way that you feel inside, whether that is that you as a brand or your personal message. But it's almost like the art of curation too, because it's like, hey, how does this like apply, and does this fit our brand?
Yeah, and I think people can interpret what we are, like themselves on the consumer side and the team on the internal side. They might have a different way of saying what the brand is, but it still says what the brand is, right? And Consider the Collective to me is a perfect, relevant, current example of somebody who's not even a full-time employee came up with a statement that resonates across the brand in every form, right? It's not, it doesn't have anything to do with sneakers.
Yeah.
It's bigger than that. So, and that's sort of our point. Like, we just want to make premium quality footwear at a value proposition. And that's what we do, but that's not what we are. Like,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you guys you're super real too, you know, and it's like, I don't know if it was on LinkedIn or if it was somewhere I saw it, but like basically, you know, the message was part of the message was you were just being real and honest. Like sales are way down, but like that's not important right now.
Well, that's me on my personal LinkedIn, right? And obviously I'm the face of Greats, or I'm associated with it in a way that most people go, oh, Ryan, Greats.
Right.
To me, in this time and any time, you sort of just have to be honest. You got to be honest with you. This is like a life lesson. It's not even about like communication with a brand. It's sort of, you got to be honest with yourself. Then you have to be honest with the people around you, whether that's your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever, your employees. And then once you do that, then you can establish a plan for success. If you don't do those first two things, it's sort of your results will not be as great as they could be. Let's just say that. I wouldn't even, it might not be fair to say it's a total failure, but it won't be optimized.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I wrote down a little question here for myself, and I think it's already answered, but just to reiterate, it's like, I was going to ask, like, when does messaging matter most, in crisis or in times of good? And I think that you're saying that really, like, the message starts way before you're even thinking about putting something out there or even building a brand. It's like the message starts with you first.
Yeah, like it truly does. And like, pandemics have a way of, and exposing the bad, right? Like we're not prepared for this, and we're not. Like the country's not prepared, the government's not prepared, the society's not prepared, businesses weren't prepared. And the ones that succeed, meaning survive, will be the ones that are at least more sort of, honest and strategic and can think about, we're prepared for we're not prepared, we didn't plan for it, but we can resist, we'll get through them because of all of these things we are as a company, right? Like that's true for government and consumers and society. Like the people that had too much credit card debt and didn't take their job seriously and took it for granted may not recover. That's like on an individual level. Companies that were, always on sale and had too many, like didn't run their business efficiently and were too reliant on wholesale, they also might be in trouble. So like these things, pandemics have happened since the beginning of time, and they won't stop either. But I think this was almost like, in a way, a reminder of like what is important in life. Like the little things are the big things.
Yeah.
Like we have to have this way because we can't hang out
Right.
in person.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. That's a big deal.
Absolutely. I mean, and it kind of, for better or worse, the word authentic and authenticity is like such a thing now. And that's like really kind of the root of what we're talking about. I personally sort of am at odds with that word. And I don't know if I personally I don't know if I'm just like sick of hearing that word, or maybe it's overused, but it's also, at the end of the day, it may sound cliche, but it's also true. And it's like being authentic from the get-go is really what will make anybody's brand, whether it's a large company or a personal photography brand. Just being authentic and putting that forward, I think, carries you through the good times and the bad times.
I think that's right. And I agree with you. Authenticity is overused, just like sustainability is. And we don't like to use sustainable as a term. We
But you
use
guys are sustainable. You know,
we're
there's so many
responsible.
things that you guys are doing to stay on that track.
We're responsible. We're responsible, and
Okay.
that's different. Like there's no such thing as a 100% sustainable company that makes things and puts it into the world. There are impacts to the earth, regardless of what you make it out of or how well you make it. That being said, you can be responsible in that production and leave the smallest print you can. And that's what we're working towards. We're not even there yet. Like it's an iterative process. It'll never end because there will always be a new technology or a new material, and everyone will get better, and like we'll just keep on going down that path. But yeah, authenticity is overused. Many people think they're authentic and they're not, right? Like to go out and say the really hard things is authentic. And a lot of people don't. They're inauthentic. They sort of cover it up with some diversion, whether it's personal, business, or other. So being authentic is necessary, but it definitely is an overused word.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just putting that real message forward. Whatever we can call it. I love that you're talking about responsible versus sustainable. I think that's like a great way to put it. Is there a way to like stay ahead of the message? Like, is there a way that you sort of can like ride the cusp of like, maybe that's like foreseeing things happening, or, I guess we could, for simplicity's sake, argue as long as you stay true to yourself, you'll be on the right message. But is there a way to like stay ahead of that?
Ahead of others or ahead of yourself?
No, just more like, I guess, is there a way to, I guess, foresee, obviously nobody could have foreseen this happening, though. I mean, maybe we could argue some people could have, but like, this whole pandemic thing, there's, if you follow the news at all, you read some stuff. Obviously, I'm not talking like on such a big scale like that, but like, it's kind of like watching trends and like, in photography, let's say, I can notice certain trends of like, for when Instagram first started, like maybe getting really big with influencers, it was a lot of people who shot like a lot of travel stuff, really pretty shit. It was like, basically you open up Instagram and it was like, I could see this in a magazine, and so like that trend sort of happened. And I think that, for lack of a better word, I think that inauthenticity has sort of fallen by the wayside, at least a little bit, or I hope it's kind of going away and becoming a bit more real on social media to a degree, I guess. But like, how do you stay ahead of like something to be like, oh, is that my message? Is that my new message? Should I pay attention to this other person's message? How do I stay ahead of that type of thing?
Well, look, that's a skill, actually. So the answer is yes, I think it is possible. And I think nobody has a crystal ball, but there are people that I think have a better ability to see something first or soonest and react to it in a way. And look, I think I'm one of those. I like to think I'm one of those people, and that just is being an observer for my entire life, and then looking at things through a probably unique lens that is not the prevailing logic lens. So we started working from home probably 4 days before anybody really was worried about that. And it was sort of like, dude, really? You think it's going to be that bad? I'm like, dude, I think it's going to be way worse than even I think it's going to be. That was sort of my thing. And I said, if I get it wrong, we worked from home for 4 days. If I get it right, we saved 4 days of spreading coronavirus for my team. So the result of that is, one, we got it right in terms of, not that I'm proud of getting this right, but like, we're like, okay, we acted sooner and didn't like believe the bullshit that was all out here, like this ridiculous messaging that was going on. This goes back to communication. The communication was dangerous in that instance, and now we're paying for it. So we took what we felt was accurate, factual information, made a decision, worked from home early. No one in the entire company got sick.
Wow.
And then we sort of went into sort of, okay, strategy mode. What's the right thing to do here? Sales are going to suck. I don't even feel good about trying to tell people to buy sneakers right now. Why do they need them?
Right.
They're worried about their life. So this is sort of not prioritized. But what if we give money away for people that do buy them? Okay, then that's when sort of Brand for Better came around. I didn't create Brand Better, but I was asked to participate, and we were sort of part of the founding brands to do that. So that's where communication, there's an exact example of like accurate information, make decisions quickly, thoughtfully, but quickly. But some people are just better at that than others.
Well, that was going to be my next question, is to be like, how do you do that?
I don't know if that's instinct. I think it's probably part instinct and part learning. If you see, ultimately things repeat themselves over and over and over, and there's sort of like, it's the old saying, like history repeats itself. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that this was going to be bad, right? Now, you could choose to take information from one source, which paints one version of reality, which is false, or you can choose to take it from the other source or sources, which is true. That's an individual decision, and it goes way deeper than what news channel they review, but it goes to the DNA of their own brand and what they believe and who they are. And many times those people are inauthentic, bullshitting themselves and bullshitting anybody around them. And ultimately they fail because that's what happens.
Yeah.
And like,
I mean,
this is not a political discussion. right? But
Right.
these things will play out in history, and this moment in time is not going to be favorable to the current government because they made tremendous errors in the way they communicated information. And it was done because they were more concerned about protecting something else than dealing with like a really hard problem.
Yeah. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that parallel, and as you're saying that, I'm like, oh man, because like, the government is something that we all can see from afar, and whatever people believe, it's something that you can use as an example towards, when I compare it directly with what should a brand do versus like, I'm seeing the government, like if you're seeing, let's say, a wrong message because of, and you can see maybe where it stems from, applying that to a brand, like, oh, why would I want to put the wrong message forward? Why would I not just be concerned with maybe putting my best self forward or my best ideas forward? If I'm more concerned about doing something else or pleasing other people, then I'm going to put the wrong thing forward and put the wrong message forward, and I'm not going to succeed.
Yeah, but like we've seen this in this environment, like COVID is an interesting sort of case study because we've seen government get it wrong. We've seen brands get it wrong, and like it's just off tone. Like it feels, even for people that are not sensitive, it still feels like, why are they saying this? If it was something, or an influencer who is like, you know, talking about her access to getting the virus test and like living in her big mansion in the Hamptons. It's like, all right, that's probably not a great, and this particular individual may lose her entire career because of that, because even her own fans were like, you're a jerk. Like, why would you say this? And so this is what, brand, both personal and from a product standpoint, really matter.
Yeah.
And but the communication, or at least the tone of communication, shouldn't change. It might go up or down in terms of volume, but like in our case, like we're still doing what we do in the way that we do it. We might be sort of leaning this way a little bit further because we're like, shit, normally I wouldn't give away this money under normal circumstances, but this is extreme. So we need to help those people as well, because they're going to actually suffer really badly, and we need to sort of do something.
Right.
We've done other sort of charitable donations over the years, but it's not like our bread and butter. That's not what this brand is built on. It's not built on charity.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we can't do the right thing frequently. And it's always nice to help people. So it's caused me personally to sort of rethink everything. Like, do we do more charity as a business model? Like, that's a question that I have for the business.
Yeah.
And we've done charities from day one. Like, it's not that we've not been charitable. It's, do we have to do more, or should we do more? And is that ultimately better for both society and the business? Because the thing about businesses are, and this needs to be mentioned, is they do need to be prosperous to exist. Now, somewhere on the scale of prosperity, you could go, oh, after this point, you're just being greedy. But before that point, it's like, that's what businesses are here to do. Like, they're here to make money and provide jobs, and that's what they do. That's the DNA of a business. If it's just generating noise and not able to sustain itself and be a profitable, productive company, then it's not really business.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not something you could just put on autopilot, like
No.
from like looking from afar, looking at like let's say a big shoe brand. You're like, oh, okay, active people running those, and that, like, but like there's people actively messaging, actively trying to come up with certain things to share and to put out in the world. Like, and greats just can't, like, you guys can't just autopilot. Okay, cool. Like those, it's those exact brands that you're referencing, basically, is like when people are autopiloting their message, they're getting it wrong, because they're coming, like, these luxury brands that are still like trying to target or advertise to people like, hey, buy this extravagant thing that you don't need right now, that, like,
Right.
they're so tone deaf that like I'm just like immediately turned off. I'm like, whoa, what? You know?
Well, and so this is like pre-COVID. So this all goes back to communication, messaging. So we had built this hiking boot that we launched. It was back in February, and it was an in-store only release. And we didn't message that. I'm sorry, it was an online only release. Sorry. We didn't say that. We just sort of came out with the boot, put it up on the site, and 30 minutes later, there was a guy in our store who was asking if he could try on the boot. And the team was like, sorry, we don't have the boot. It was super limited. It's only online. And he's like, well, I want to try it on here. That's bullshit. And he goes on Instagram and he starts like, yeah, right. So I'm like, oh, fuck, dude. This is 30 minutes after the boot's launched. So, but again, like messaging, communication. The guy's there and the team is like slacking me. And I'm like, tell him I'm on my way down. I'm like, I'm going to walk over there. So I walk over there and I sit down with the guy. I'm like, hey, I hear you're really upset. And he goes, well, I live in Greenpoint. I walked over here. I thought you'd have it in the store. You don't. It's kind of annoying. And then I started explaining to him why. And he's like, okay, that makes sense. But I really just wanted to see the color of it because it's white and it can look different in real life. I'm like, dude, you make a great point. Like, one, we could have messaged that this was only an online thing, so you wouldn't have walked to the store, so we failed there. Two, it's a pretty good idea that we should have one boot in here just so people can see it and touch it. They can't try it on because we don't have enough inventory. And we went through that process. And at the end, he like reversed his Instagram, be like, I just met the founder. This is crazy. He walked over here. I just bought the boot because he explained to me the color, blah, 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 blah. But the point of that whole thing, that story I just told you was like messaging, communication. We could have done a better job. And he would have not come to the store and he would have not been upset. He may not have bought the shoe, but that's okay. He would have been clearly communicated and messaged to, don't waste your time and walk to the store because it's not there.
Yeah, I mean, you could have done a better job, but that guy just got a very unique experience, man. He got to talk to the founder of the company, man. You walk down there. How's that for messaging? That's amazing.
I know, and that's what he said. He's like, at first he's like looking at me and he's like, I'm like, I'm really the founder. He's like, yeah, I think I've seen you before. I'm like, no, really, I am. And then he was like, oh my God, he was all flattered. I can't do that for every experience. You know what I'm saying? And if we could, that would be awesome because we'd have probably like a 95% conversion rate. It would just be, I get to speak to people. They understand very clearly.
Yeah.
Cool. But I can't. So we have to do better with the tools we have and the reality of not me not talking to every single person that ever visits our store or our website, unfortunately.
Right. But it's all, at the end of the day too, it's all a learning lesson. It's something that you can take back to the team. You can take back personally. And, it's an evolution, even staying true to your own ethos and a brand's ethos, but still it's always an evolution because like you said, it's like, well, I guess we could have done better messaging, but if anything, it's like, it's a great learning thing to pull away and to really, take home with you.
Yeah. And that's sort of like, for me, it was a positive experience because we learned something. You may have heard me say this before, but like the road to success is paved with failures. And that's true. It's just like you take one failure and you learn a little bit and you take another failure and you learn a little bit. And this is, it's experimentation, it's failure, it's learning, it's move forward. And that's it. Like that's sort of the sequence. And I don't know anybody in the world at anywhere on the spectrum of success, whether you want to judge them, like whether you rate that like financial or, output or artistic, they have all failed.
Hell yeah.
And just kept going. Like not failed once. I mean like failed millions of times, like little tiny failures along the way. Like
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Sometimes I have a friend of mine I speak with quite a bit, and he's a very successful entrepreneur, has started, I don't know how many figure, but like big figure companies and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, like, we'll talk about money or whatever. And he's like, man, I've lost X amount of dollars. And he's like, so what? And I'm just like, it's just like, you have to fail to succeed. And if you fail and you think that's like an L, and you're just like, I'll just take the L, like, you're just not going to get back up, and you're not going to get the W, So it's like,
Right. Right.
I don't know.
That's true. It's a series of losses to get to the one big W. Like
For
that's
sure. For sure. And then even then you gotta keep playing the game, because you're gonna lose again, and you're gonna win again, you're gonna lose again.
yeah.
Yeah. So I want to open up to questions now. If anybody's got some, Corey, Erica, Matt, Matt, I saw you're just joining us. We're here with Ryan B. And if you guys have questions, feel free you can unmute yourselves, or put yourself on the video chat too, if that's easier, or type into the chat, of course. But Ryan B is a great resource here, and we've got a little bit of time left. If you want to chat now, would be like an awesome time. And Ryan, if you have anything else that you want to talk about, man, I'm totally open.
No, I'm here at anybody's disposal.
Cool.
No.
We'll give them a sec maybe to think, and if there's no questions. Oh, cool. Hey, Corey, what's up, man?
Hey guys. So question for you. I think like the charity work is interesting that you said you've done charity work in the past, and like you guys have recently had this new Brands for Better type initiative that's going on. And you said you want to increase your charity work moving forward. Are you worried about like your brand perception moving forward from this crisis of like, okay, like we've done this huge initiative now, and then if you shut it off, people are going to think of you differently? Or like what's your, or is it really just like you actually enjoy the charity work, therefore you want to increase it and continue going it? Like, curious to put your headset on.
Yeah. So for the two-part question, I'm not worried about it when we stop, because Brands for Better is not going to be forever. It likely will not be forever. So when we stop doing that as a collective, or coalition rather, because there's like 30 brands there, I think everybody gets applauded that, hey guys, you helped out at a really different time, and now you're sort of back to what you did on a normal basis. In terms of us sort of wanting to do more charity, I just don't know yet. I don't know what that looks like, because like I said, we sort of have to be a successful business before we can start giving away money, right? Like, you can always do more good when you're healthy. And so if you're a struggling business, you cannot do as much good, right? Like, you sort of like, you balance, like, I want to do good, but if I do that, that's like one less person I can't hire, and I really need to hire that person. So where is the good being applied? Like, it's also good to employ people, right? That's sort of that's not charity, but it's net positive for society, right? So for us, we sort of still have to figure out what's right. And the answer is, I don't know yet. I'm still thinking about, does it mean we align once a year with a charity? Does it mean we do it on every single purchase? And the answer is, I'll let you know in the future.
Corey, are you seeing that? Just out of my own curiosity, Ryan, Corey works at an agency, and are you seeing that in any of the brands that you deal with?
Yeah, I mean, it's either stop, pause, get your messaging right, and go back out there, or it's been continue to message but tread lightly. So it's been kind of tricky. Like, we have some hospitality brands like Marriott, Hilton. They're toast. Like, they're completely positive at the moment. But then like some of our financial clients, they've been just trying to like tweak their messaging to make sure that it's skewed towards their corporate responsibility messaging that they have of what banks are doing for the better. Citi has like no kid hungry stuff that they're doing. So they've turned off like all offer type messaging and turned it on to that kind of stuff. But it's been interesting to try and like figure out how brands are reacting, and if some people have picked up charity work that they haven't done in the past. So it's like, is that going to continue? So it's like you've like done this in the past and you'll always continue to do it. But like consumer trust is so tied directly to how brands are reacting to it right now that it's tough.
Yeah, look, I think for greats and for me personally, which at this point is still sort of pretty like tied together like that, doing good is never a hard choice, right? It's an easy choice. It's, can you afford to? That's what it becomes, an economic decision, not a, I'd like, this, we should do it all the time. Can we do it economically is the more challenging part of the decision. But in this climate, if you're not doing something at any part, wherever you are in whatever vertical, if you're not doing something, you're fucked. Like, I just think consumers are going to be like, dude, we don't care about the discount alone. You need to step the fuck up and contribute to helping the society at large. And like, that's my point of view. I mean, and that's really hard. I understand how hard that is. Hospitality, the layoffs or the furloughs are just, it's unprecedented. So how does a hotel brand give back? They can. Hey, fucking take my facility, build a hospital in it. Like, it's not impossible. It's just, you gotta grab them and sort of like make a hard decision, because they're hard. It's a hard decision to live by, and it may be in the short term economically damaging, and that's what we're all facing. So, but not doing anything is not the solution.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, all right. Well, thanks, Ryan. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming, man. This has been so valuable, not only to me, but I know everybody else here. And I really appreciate you taking out the time and sharing your story and your ideas with us. And I'm just really grateful for it, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. And thank you, everybody. And if you need to get a hold of me, greatsbrand.com. Just shoot me a note.
Sweet. Cool.
All right.
Appreciate it.
I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.